His name is still whispered in occult circles, while historians merely shrug. Count Saint-Germain remains an enigma, his life a tapestry woven from alchemy and espionage, diplomacy and virtuoso music, philosophy and unprecedented deception. In the early 18th century, he materialized in Europe seemingly out of nowhere, with no discernible past, family, or apparent source of wealth. He spoke 12 languages, played the violin like a virtuoso, and displayed profound knowledge in chemistry, botany, and art. He was immediately dubbed a wonder man and a magician, as his knowledge transcended the ordinary. At royal courts, he felt at home, easily gaining the trust of monarchs from Louis XV to Frederick the Great. Saint-Germain undertook secret diplomatic missions across Europe, from London to Constantinople, influencing politics and engaging in intrigue. He also showcased astonishing alchemical abilities, purportedly transmuting metals, removing flaws from precious stones, and creating elixirs of eternal youth. He himself claimed to be centuries old, to have personally known Jesus Christ and Cleopatra, his ageless appearance only fueling these incredible rumors. He quickly became a living legend, the embodiment of the mysterious and unfathomable. His name became shrouded in unimaginable speculation, transforming him from a mere adventurer into an immortal mage, a keeper of ancient secrets. Whispers of his ability to live forever spread by word of mouth, creating the image of an omnipotent prophet. He became a symbol of the Enlightenment, an era where reason battled superstition, yet Saint-Germain skillfully exploited the latter to build his empire of influence. This mystification, as it happened, has survived centuries. To this day, his name is associated with occultism, secret societies, and endless life. But let's be honest, Count Saint-Germain was not immortal. He was a brilliant con artist, a masterful illusionist, and an unparalleled manipulator who expertly leveraged humanity's craving for miracles and fear of the unknown. Behind the mystical veil that shrouded Count Saint-Germain lay a meticulously constructed persona, whose roots likely ran far deeper than commonly believed. Contrary to popular legends of his sudden appearance from nowhere, historical research points to a very earthly origin. The most plausible theory suggests he was the son of Ferenc Rákóczi II, Prince of Transylvania, and Princess Rákóczi. If so, his birth was likely illegitimate, which at the time meant deprivation of all rights and privileges, despite his high lineage. This fact could have been the first profound trauma, the seed from which the need to create an entirely new, brilliant identity sprouted. Imagine a child born into luxury but denied the right to it, a child who, from an early age, saw how power and status determined destiny, yet was condemned to obscurity due to the circumstances of his birth. This environment, where aristocratic splendor coexisted with personal disenfranchisement, could have shaped his unique psychological profile. He didn't merely want to be rich or influential. He sought to rewrite his own history, to rise above the limitations society imposed on him. His early years were likely spent traveling and learning. He absorbed knowledge like a sponge, mastering languages, music, alchemy, and botany. This was not idle curiosity. Every new skill, every language learned, every book read became a brick in the foundation of the grand fabrication he was building. He wasn't just learning, he was arming himself. This wasn't a path to scientific discovery, but training for a future masquerade. He understood that in a world where reputation meant everything, any reputation could be created with sufficient skill and audacity. And somewhere along this path, perhaps after his first minor but successful schemes, came the point of no return, the moment he realized that illusion could be more powerful than reality. He understood that playing a role convincingly enough could make it true for those around him. Perhaps this happened in Venice, where he first presented himself as a man of extraordinary abilities, or in Paris, where he was accepted at court. Each time he was believed, each time his words were taken at face value, each time he gained access to high society without any legal justification, his conviction in his own genius grew stronger. He saw how easily people succumbed to the allure of mystery, how desperately they craved miracles. And he gave it to them. He ceased to be merely an impostor. He became an artist of deception, whose canvas was reality itself. He didn't just exploit existing superstitions, he created new, more powerful ones that served his own ends. Thus, step by step, psychological pressure and ambition transformed a man of unknown origin into a living legend who continues to captivate minds to this day. The 18th century in Europe was not merely an era of grand transformations, it was an ideal, fertile ground for the flourishing of the most incredible adventures. A continent torn by incessant wars and political intrigues lived under the rule of absolute monarchs whose courts became centers not only of power but also of pervasive boredom, a thirst for entertainment and exoticism. From Paris to St. Petersburg, London to Vienna, kings, queens, and their countless favorites sought something to break the monotony of court life, something that transcended the ordinary. It was into this vacuum, where reality mingled with fiction and rumors became currency, that Count Saint-Germain emerged. The political map of Europe resembled a patchwork quilt, stitched from constantly shifting alliances and eternal conflicts. The War of the Austrian Succession, the 7 Years' War, these bloody clashes not only redrew borders, but also created an acute need for secret diplomacy, espionage, and unofficial influence. Monarchs, distrusting even their own ministers, readily turned to those who could operate behind the scenes, bypassing official channels. They needed a person with no obvious affiliations, no official position, but with impeccable access and incredible charisma, a shadow figure capable of penetrating the most closed circles. The economic climate was equally favorable for such activities. Despite the growth of trade and the first stirrings of capitalism, colossal wealth was concentrated in the hands of the aristocracy, while the vast majority of the population lived in poverty. This concentration of capital and power created a unique dynamic. The rich were willing to pay enormous sums for unique items, rare knowledge, and exclusive services that could enhance their status or provide an advantage. Gold, jewels, exotic goods, all were part of a game in which Saint-Germain felt perfectly at home, offering alchemical miracles and rare precious stones, purportedly improved by himself. However, perhaps the most crucial factor was the unique social and intellectual atmosphere of the 18th century. This was the age of enlightenment, when reason and science seemingly should have supplanted superstition. Yet, paradoxically, it was precisely during this era that belief in occultism, mysticism, and secret societies flourished. Freemasons, Rosicrucians, these brotherhoods, shrouded in secrecy, attracted the minds of the most enlightened individuals, from philosophers to kings. People hungry for knowledge sought not only rational explanations for the world, but also hidden truths, ancient secrets, and promises of immortality and perfection. Court salons and urban coffeehouses served as incubators for rumors, where stories of miracles and incredible personalities spread like wildfire. In the absence of modern identification and verification methods, creating a new biography was far easier than today. An individual appearing from nowhere could easily invent a noble lineage, an impressive fortune, and fantastic abilities, provided they possessed sufficient charm and persuasive skill. Society, tired of mundane reality, was ready to embrace any tale, if only it was told skillfully enough. The craving for miracles, the desire for the extraordinary, the belief in secret knowledge, all converged to create the perfect backdrop for the appearance of the immortal Count Saint-Germain. He didn't merely deceive, he gave people what they desperately wanted, a touch of mystery, the promise of eternity, a sense of belonging to something grand and unfathomable. He wasted no time on idle chatter. His first triumph was a masterful juggling of alchemical promises, which he not only declared, but seemingly brought to life right before the astonished aristocracy. He didn't just talk about elixirs and transmutation, he laid out gleaming evidence, like a magician revealing his most incredible tricks. One of the most famous stories concerns precious stones. Count Saint-Germain claimed to be able not only to remove flaws from diamonds, but also to increase their weight, imbuing them with unimaginable brilliance. He would show monarchs and courtiers stones that he had improved, and they truly looked incredible. In one instance, legend has it, he took a small, dull diamond from a king or influential dignitary, and a few days later returned it sparkling, flawless, and sometimes even heavier. Rumors circulated that he transformed ordinary small diamonds into much larger stones, or even more incredibly, created synthetic jewels absolutely indistinguishable from natural ones. These demonstrations, whether skillful tricks based on deep knowledge of mineralogy and chemistry, or genuine but not fully understood mastery, instantly elevated him in the eyes of monarchs and courtiers. After all, who wouldn't want such a source of untold wealth, or at least to witness such a miracle promising fabulous profits? His reputation as a wonder man, capable of the impossible, opened doors for him not only to salons, but also to the secret chambers of power, where the stakes were incredibly high. Louis XIV, weary of intrigue, distrust, and the inefficiency of traditional diplomacy, found in Saint-Germain an ideal agent for the secret du roi, a parallel diplomatic channel operating outside official structures. Fluent in a dozen languages, possessing incredible charisma, and lacking official status, the Count became an indispensable tool for delicate assignments. He moved freely between European capitals, from London to The Hague, Vienna to Constantinople, conducting secret negotiations, gathering information, and attempting to influence the outcome of the bloody 7 Years' War, which was draining treasuries and lives. His missions often involved peace initiatives which, had they succeeded, could have changed the course of history, preventing further bloodshed. He met with influential politicians, delivered encrypted messages, and sometimes initiated contacts himself, acting as an independent but highly effective intermediary. The fact that he could negotiate at the highest level without an army or official mandate behind him astonished the imagination and only strengthened his mystical aura, making him an even more enigmatic and, therefore, more valuable figure for those seeking unconventional solutions to problems. All these maneuvers were merely part of a grander performance, the creation of an image of an immortal sage, capable of seeing through centuries and holding the deepest secrets of the universe. He never aged, his face remained remarkably youthful, and his recollections covered events centuries past with astonishing detail. Saint-Germain recounted stories of personally conversing with Jesus Christ, attending the wedding at Cana, or being acquainted with Cleopatra, describing their manners and dialogues as if they had occurred yesterday. He conspicuously refused to eat in the presence of others, explaining that he sustained himself on special elixirs that maintained his eternal youth and health. This constant refusal of ordinary human needs, combined with his incredible erudition, knowledge of long-past eras, and ability to predict future events, often vaguely but convincingly enough, was a powerful psychological trick. He didn't just talk about eternal life. He lived it, or at least convinced others he did, creating an aura of undeniable knowledge and omnipotence around himself. This central element of his personality served as the foundation for all his other endeavors, lending them a divine, undeniable authority. When a person claims to have witnessed history like no other, their words about the present and future gain an entirely different weight, transforming them from a mere adventurer into a seer and a confidant of higher powers. Count Saint-Germain didn't merely tell stories about his immortality and mystical abilities. He was these stories, embodying them in every gesture, every word, every glance. His charisma was not merely ordinary charm, it was a meticulously constructed, multidimensional edifice capable of instantly capturing attention and suppressing critical thought. He always appeared in high society, impeccably dressed, with the bearing of an aristocrat and eyes that seemed to reflect centuries. His manners were perfect, his speech hypnotically persuasive, and his intonations so precise that every word settled into the listener's consciousness as an undeniable truth. He didn't just speak, he performed a role, living it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In his presence, people felt part of something grand, touched by mystery, and this emotional engagement made them incredibly receptive to his narratives. He knew how to listen, ask the right questions, and most importantly, give people what they wanted to hear, adapting to their deepest desires and fears. He masterfully played upon humanity's oldest and most powerful chord, greed. His alchemical demonstrations, whether the improvement of precious stones or promises of elixirs of immortality, were not mere tricks. They were direct offers of untold riches and eternal life, two of the most coveted yet unattainable things for most. When he showcased a purified diamond that purportedly became larger or clearer after his touch, he wasn't just performing a trick, he was revealing a path to unlimited wealth. Monarchs and courtiers, seeing the potential for enriching their treasuries or personal fortunes, were willing to overlook any inconsistencies as the prospect of fabulous profits clouded their judgment. He never gave them precise instructions on how to replicate his miracles, but he always left them hoping they might one day gain access to his secrets, thereby binding them even more tightly to him. To further his influence, Saint-Germain employed subtle yet highly effective manipulation techniques. He didn't just claim his abilities, he ensured they received expert endorsement. Often, these weren't necessarily bribed individuals, but rather respected jewelers, scientists, or doctors whom he skillfully involved in his demonstrations. For instance, after improving a gem, he might suggest an independent expert evaluate it. Struck by its brilliance and purity, the expert couldn't find a logical explanation and thus unwittingly confirmed the miracle. He skillfully created a buzz around himself, rationing information, appearing and disappearing suddenly, forcing people to talk about him. Rumors of his incredible capabilities spread like wildfire, fueled by his rare but impressive appearances and mysterious disappearances. He didn't seek attention, he manufactured it, turning every action into fodder for conversations and speculation that only reinforced his mystical aura. But the main tool in his arsenal was undoubtedly his astonishing personal adaptability. He was a chameleon, capable of instantly changing masks and roles depending on the interlocutor and the situation. In a philosopher's salon, he could engage in a deep discussion about metaphysics, and an hour later, at a king's reception, discuss the intricacies of European politics or military strategy. His extensive knowledge in various fields, from music and painting to chemistry and botany, was not merely academic baggage, it was a tool for instantly establishing rapport and demonstrating his exceptionalism. He could speak 12 languages, allowing him to communicate freely with monarchs and diplomats across Europe, bypassing interpreters, and thereby gaining access to the most confidential information. This ability for instant transformation, combined with an incredible memory and a sharp mind, allowed him to always be one step ahead, anticipating questions and cleverly evading exposure, maintaining his grand mystification for decades. It was this astonishing adaptability, as we discussed, that opened doors for him into Europe's most influential cabinets. Louis XV, weary of endless intrigues and his own bureaucracy's inefficiency, found in Count Saint-Germain the perfect instrument for his secret operations. The king entrusted him with what he couldn't even confide in his own ministers, delicate diplomatic missions that had to remain in absolute secrecy. This was the so-called Secret du Roi, a parallel diplomatic service operating outside official channels. Saint-Germain, with his ability to gain trust, impeccable manners, and apparent independence, became an indispensable agent for Louis XV, capable of conducting negotiations at the highest level without leaving official traces. He could appear in The Hague, London, or Vienna, deliver an encrypted message, gather necessary information, and disappear, leaving behind only a trail of rumors and bewilderment. For the king, this was a way to maneuver in complex European politics, especially during the exhausting 7 Years' War, when France desperately needed new allies, or at least a respite. Saint-Germain offered precisely that, unorthodox paths to peace and influence that were unavailable to traditional diplomats. Not only kings, but countless courtiers, from duchesses to financial magnates, became unwitting beneficiaries of his meticulously crafted game. Those who believed in his alchemical abilities invested vast sums, hoping to gain access to the secrets of metal transmutation or the improvement of precious stones. For them, Saint-Germain was not just a mysterious stranger, but a potential source of inexhaustible wealth. He never gave them precise formulas, but he demonstrated convincing enough miracles to sustain their hope, and, more importantly, their financial support. Many of them, captivated by the prospect of immense profits, became his unofficial patrons, providing him with shelter, connections, and, most valuable of all, alibis for his constant movements. Their greed and desire for the unusual made them ideal victims, yet also indispensable pillars of his grand project. However, where such influence emerges, adversaries inevitably arise. The main antagonist, whose shadow constantly pursued Saint-Germain, was Étienne François, Duc de Choiseul, Louis XV's powerful and influential first minister. Choiseul embodied traditional power, a tough, pragmatic politician who built his career on proven principles of diplomacy and military affairs. He saw Saint-Germain not merely as a charlatan, but as a dangerous threat to state stability and, no less importantly, to his own position. The Secret du Roi was a direct undermining of his authority, and the elusive Count, with direct access to the monarch and conducting shadow negotiations, seemed to Choiseul a destabilizing element capable of plunging France into even greater chaos. The conflict between Choiseul and Saint-Germain was a clash of two worlds: the world of the old aristocracy, relying on hierarchy and tradition, and the world of new, mysterious influence based on charisma, deception, and personal genius. Choiseul, using all his administrative resources, repeatedly tried to expose the Count, brand him a swindler, and expel him from France. He sent dispatches, initiated investigations, and even attempted to arrange Saint-Germain's arrest. For the Count, each such confrontation was a test of his ability to maneuver, evade blows, and retain the king's trust. He was forced to be constantly vigilant, using his network of informants and an incredible sense of danger to stay one step ahead of his powerful adversary. This constant cat-and-mouse game, where not only freedom but life itself was at stake, only fueled his legend, making him an even more elusive and mystical figure in the eyes of those who followed this undeclared confrontation.